Alif, Ba, Sin,
Fa. Ahmad.
Ahmad. Oh, Ahmad. Mana ni budak? Ahmad. You have to repeat myself every time. Ahmad. You don't come out, your phone gone.
20 minutes.
Alhamdulillah, it's a good meal. Oh, wow.
Ahmad, you haven't eat? Faster eat. The food is getting colder.
Wait lah, later I eat.
Faster eat now.
Just eat. Just eat the food.
Wait lah, I said already. How many times I want to say? Do I need to repeat myself again?
Okay, don't repeat. Don't repeat. Join us at the Youth Forum on
20th December
9 p.m.
streaming live.
on Facebook.
and YouTube.
See you there. See you there.
9 PM.
Whoa!
9 PM cakap minta.
Apa yang kau cakap 9 PM lepas tu kau, you know. Let me see the phone.
Apa ni? This, I cannot eat.
Yeah.
I don't want to
I
eat.
want to repeat.
No, this one is not eat.
Assalamualaikum, Bang Fandi.
Waalaikumsalam. Khabar?
I have questions I want to ask you
Say.
and advice for my parents because I want to take soccer, but they want me to take basketball.
First and foremost, don't waste time about football, basketball. Okay?
Okay.
Actually, I'm just kidding. Study is important, but for me, football also quite important for you because there's future in football.
I'm quite scared to talk to them about it.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
Parents will be understanding for you.
Hopefully.
Definitely, we'll see you on the 20th, then we can discuss further. Here,
Alright.
so I'll be here. I hope all of you will join us. Any question you want to ask, DM us here at this
Alright.
mosque. Yeah.
I think I'll DM now lah instead.
Better. Hi everybody, this is Fandi Ahmad here. I'm at Masjid Al Abdul Razak. Please join us in the Youth Forum on the 20th December 2029 PM. FB Live. Don't forget, Masjid Al Abdul Razak. Alright. Do I have to repeat myself?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Alhamdulillahilladzi bi ni'matihi tatimmus salihat. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala sayyidina Muhammad al-fatih lima ughliq wal khatim lima sabaq. Nasiril haqqi bil haqq wal hadi ila siratikal mustaqim. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi haqqa qadrihi wa miqdarihi al-azim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amma ba'du. We begin by praising Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, for only with His permission and His divine blessings are we all able to gather together on this blessed evening from wherever we may be to attend this evening's forum entitled, Do I Have to Repeat Myself? I would like to firstly thank all our viewers tuning in with us via the Facebook page of Masjid Ali Abdul Razak as well as the YouTube page. And thank you for making time to join us on our inaugural Youth Forum, first time to be done in the English language. And it is an absolute honor to have with us this evening our esteemed speakers, Ustaz Anwar Hussein as well as Ustaz Khairi Nazrun, to shed light on us on this particular, what I would feel as an important topic. A lovely welcome as well to our respected guest who is no stranger to everyone, Mr. Fandi Ahmad, as well as his son Ilhan Fandi. Thank you. My name is Muhammad Hardik Shahrin and I am deeply humbled to be your moderator for this night's talk. I'm sure most of you are truly in anticipation of the forum that we are to discuss tonight, inshallah. Before we proceed on further, let us begin by reciting Surah Al-Fatiha with the intent that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala blesses our gathering this evening. And may we benefit from today's sharing by our esteemed speakers and respected guests. We also ask that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala accepts our attendance for this evening's forum as a means of getting closer to Him and His Messenger Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ala hadhihi an-niyya wal kulli niyatun salihah wa ila hadratin Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-Fatiha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbil alamin. Rahmanirrahim. Ghairil maghdubi alaihim. Alhamdulillah. So I'd like to once again welcome our respected speakers, Ustaz Anwar as well as Ustaz Khairi, to our humble mosque, Masjid Ali Abdul Razak. And let's not to forget our respected guest, Mr. Fandi Ahmad, as well as his son. Mr. Fandi Ahmad, of course, as we know, our legend, national footballer. And of course, Ilhan Fandi, who is also equally as famous now, mashallah. And also, to my warmest welcome goes out to all our online attendees, from youths to parents this evening, because this forum is meant for all of us. Thank you all for making time in the midst of your busy schedules and precious weekend to listen and join for today's forum. Do I have to repeat myself? I hope everyone has had their dinner and are seated comfortably for the forum that's yet to come, inshallah. So please allow me to first introduce this evening's forum for the benefit of our listeners. Do I have to repeat myself is a question more traditionally and frequently asked by parents to their youth children. But increasingly today, youths are also asking their parents this same notion, as though signaling a communication breakdown between the two parties, parents and youth. This age-old issue about parenting youths remains relevant all the more today. As such, Masjid Ali Abdul Razak's youth team, Marvels, has raised this topic as an issue that should be reflected on during this forum. And as such, with the hard work put in by so many parties, the mosque would like to humbly seek for your generous contributions so that we may continue to finance our da'wah efforts, and more importantly, our ongoing renovation works for our toilet and roofing and for the upkeep of the mosque. You may contribute via PayNow, bank transfer, or via check mailed to the mosque. More information on how you can contribute to the mosque can be seen on your screens at home. Any contribution, no matter how small, is meaningful, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward all of you for your contributions. So, back to the topic. What I feel is very unique about this forum is that it aims to address the issues that we face on both sides of the same coin, which is from the parents' perspective as well as the youth's perspective. The important questions, such as the roles and responsibilities of each party on one another, and what is nagging, would be addressed by our two speakers together with a discussion with our two guests as well, inshallah. So before we begin, I would like to firstly share the structure of tonight's forum very briefly. We will be having three main topic questions, and it will be discussed by our two Asatizahs on the panel. We will then get our two speakers to weigh in on the content that has been shared by our speakers. Before we move on to the next topic question, we will end with a Q&A session at the end of it. So, to embark on this evening's forum, let's not waste time some more. I'm sure everyone's in anticipation, so we will begin the forum proper, inshallah, by asking the first question. I will first ask the question, and then followed by we get the response of our respected Asatizah, Ustaz Anwar, followed by Ustaz Khairi, inshallah. So, the first question, Ustaz. Thank you so much, Ustaz, for being with us. So, firstly, how do we identify these roles and responsibilities, of parents to child and child to parents in our familial relationships as a Muslim and as a member of society? And how do you think these roles and duties influence our behavior? And how do we improve ourselves to become better versions of what we were and what we could possibly be, as what our beloved Prophet ﷺ has taught us? So, Ustaz, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Before I begin, I would like to express my thanks to the committee of Masjid Abdul Razak, especially the chairman, Mr. Shahrin, likewise Mr. Moderator and Brother Haziq, and my friend Ustaz Khairi, and our special guest, Mr. Fandi Ahmad and his son. We begin by praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah make this gathering a reason that Allah bless for all of us towards His obedience, and also giving us the ability to refrain from all His prohibitions. Ameen. Inwardly and outwardly. Ameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen. As a Muslim, it is important for us to understand what is the Islamic message when it comes to the importance of children obeying to their parents, and likewise the importance of parents in educating children. So we find, for example, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about these two main aspects, the importance of parents in educating the children, and likewise the importance of children in obeying the parents. And Islam gives a lot of emphasis in this regard. And we find, for example, in Surah Al-Isra, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, فَأَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تُشْرِكَ بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained that you should not associate any partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the message of the importance of having faith and iman to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the foundation of our deen. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And Allah make it incumbent upon children to not only obey parents, but at the same time this obedience must be in the perspective of ihsan. Al-Imam Muhammad Mutawalli Sha'rawi, when he speaks about this particular verse, in the Arabic language, there is a difference between Hasan and Ihsan. So in the Arabic language, when we say something that is Hasan, meaning it is good. But when we mention the word Ihsan, it is above any goodness. So not only in Islam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commanded us children to obey our parents, but at the same time this form of obedience towards our parents must be based on ihsan, it must be much greater than goodness in itself. So he gave an example about if any children obey their parents just for the sake of obedience, and the difference between this kind of obedience and the obedience of someone who brings together with that obedience and love towards his parents. So the meaning of ihsan is to obey our parents not only for the sake of obedience, but this form of obedience must be accompanied by love and affection. So this is the message, the Quranic message that the Quran is teaching us as Muslims. It is very, very important for us to pay attention to that aspect after our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the importance of parents in educating children. So for example, we can find in Surah Al-Luqman, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the advice of Luqman as a father to the child. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةَ أَنِ اشْكُرْ لِلَّهِ. For verily we have given Luqman al-Hakim the wisdom. And one of the wisdoms that Allah gave Luqman al-Hakim is to make shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah speaks about the conversation between Luqman al-Hakim, that is as a father to his son, where he mentioned, Ya bunayya la tushrik billah inna shirka la dhulmun azim. He gave advice to the son about the importance of having faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is again the basis of our religion. And likewise, Luqman al-Hakim taught his son about ethics. For example, he say, Ya bunayya wa'mur aqimis salata, observe the prayers, wa'mur bil ma'rufi wanha anil munkar, wasbir ala ma asabak. Ask or seek any people to perform the good deeds and refrain from the bad deeds, and call any people towards goodness. Wasbir ala ma asabak, and have patience for everything that befalls you, because those who invite people towards goodness and refrain from prohibitions, certainly they will be tested from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he mentioned waqsid and bimashika, do not walk in an arrogant manner. And he also mentioned waghdud min sawtik fa inna ankara al-aswati la sawtul hamir, and do not raise your voice, the worst kind of voice, the voice of the donkey. So all these are basically part of the ethics that Luqman al-Hakim taught his son. So from this aspect, we understand how Islam gave the importance of parents in nurturing children, teaching children about the basics and tenets of faith, and at the same time about the importance of performing prayers, and likewise about ethics when he mixed with the society. So as a summary, we as Muslims, whether we are now a parent or we are children that we have parents, for example, so it is important for us Muslims, we have to study and look at these two main aspects of interaction that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us, because these are part of our responsibilities to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the situation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing us, and we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with tawfiq and hidayah, inshallah.
Shukran Ustaz for I think what is a very insightful sharing. So Ustaz Khairi, what do you think of the question that was asked, and maybe you could as well add on to what Ustaz Anwar has shared. Ustaz Khairi, tafadhal.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. First and foremost, I would like to thank Mr. Moderator, Brother Haziq, for having us here, and also as well as Ustaz Anwar Hussein, and also our esteemed guest here, which is Mr. Fandi Ahmad and his son Ilhan Fandi. And I also take this opportunity to thank Masjid Abdul Razak for having me and all of us here to share beneficial, inshallah, sharing, inshallah. So as to, not to add on, but to complement what Ustaz Anwar has shared to all of us is, I would like to actually share a story based on a true story with regards to serving our parents. When we say serve, Ustaz Anwar just now mentioned that we need to serve and we need to obey, or in Malay we call it ta'at lah, mentaati. So there's I'm not the best person, of course, to share, but this is a well-known story that happened in the times of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there's a man where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told his sahaba, told his companions, he said that when this man comes to you, ask for his dua, because his dua will never ever be rejected by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. So the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they asked the question, Ya Rasulullah, why? Who is this man? We are with you. We are with you, and then we thought that we went to war with you and we seek knowledge from you. But who is this man that you are talking about? And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed on or wafat. And then this man came, and his name was Uwais Al-Qarni. Uwais Al-Qarni came all the way from Yemen. So if you look at the map, of course, Saudi Arabia, back then it was Mecca, Medina. So in Medina, Yemen is at the southern of Medina. So this man traveled all the way to Medina to meet the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he didn't get the chance to meet the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But why? Why he didn't get the chance to meet the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? It is because he was serving his mother. And according to some of the stories, according to some riwayah, Uwais Al-Qarni actually trained very hard physically to actually carry his mother from Yemen all the way to perform Hajj to Mecca. So you imagine back then there was no planes, no buses, no cars, right? So now, mashallah, we train for something for example, to look better or to feel healthy. But Uwais Al-Qarni, in some riwayah, says that he carries a goat or a sheep all the way up to the hill. All the way up to the hill, mashallah. I can't even carry my own bag climbing up my stairs. So mashallah. So that is how he trained to serve his mother. And also Rasulullah SAW mentioned to his Sahaba that you ask dua from this particular man because his dua is not rejected. So what could we learn from here is that a dua from a man that served his mother or served his parents will never ever be rejected by Allah SWT. Now we are wondering why we ask Allah Subhanahu wa Taala things. Why when we ask Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, when we actually wanted something to happen but it didn't happen, so maybe we can muhasabah, or we can reflect upon ourselves, how do we access these gates of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is by first serving our parents. And also with regards to parents, as mentioned, as Ustaz Anwar has mentioned before, regardless of their attitudes or how they serve or how they talk to us or how they treat us, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because there's a story also about the Prophet ﷺ, which I will tell later, inshallah. But the main point here is, as best as possible, if you serve your parents, if you serve both your fathers and your mothers, mashallah, inshallah, Allah will make everything easy for you, inshallah. So, and also, one of our responsibility is, of course, to make dua to them. And the most popular dua is Rabbi ghfirli wali walidayya warhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira. Ya Allah, forgive me and also our parents and my parents. Rabbi ghfirli wali walidayya, both my parents, warhamhuma, and bless them, kama rabbayani saghira, and like how they actually take care of us during our childhood. And that is the dua that we need to seek from Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala to protect our parents, and also inshallah Allah will make us protected inshallah.
Amin, inshallah. Shukran Ustaz for your sharing. I feel okay, so now this is where we get to the discussion portion after we have heard from our two esteemed speakers. So, Fandi, let me just ask you, so what do you think of what has been shared by our two speakers? Because I think what they have shared is not necessarily something new that we know. For all we know, that it has been something that we practice, So what do you have? What do you think about what has been said by our two speakers?
Most important thing, I think, as a Muslim, we must respect our religion. Because as parents, we must lead the way. Because we have kids, I have 5 kids. The way we lead the way is very important for us. Because if not, in future, we might not know what happened to them if they are not brought up in a proper way as a Muslim. This is very important for me because it's always about honesty, empathy, respectful towards elderly, especially your parents, your grandparents, even your friends. And I always advise my kids, when you go out of the house, remember to hold the name of the family itself as well. And when you meet people, you must greet them well, show respect. It's important that kids respect the elderly, and especially your mom and dad. That is, for me, is very crucial, because if you can do that, you will be respected, because I think people know you are being brought up in a proper manner, and proper ways of Islam.
Alhamdulillah. So, thank you, Fandi. Perhaps your son would like to weigh in on this. What do you think? Because I think, as your father mentioned, that he has trained, or he has taught his children to uphold certain values, certain moral ethics. So what do you think about
Actually, that was one of the main points that my dad always tells us, to respect the elderly, and also to be humble, even if we do good or bad, because this is one of the phrases he always says: if you're humble, you'll never stumble. So that's what all 5 kids, we try and bring out, and we try and respect my mom and dad, and also respect any elderly, and try and give back to my parents also, because they try and bring us up as best as possible, and we try and give back. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Thank you, because I think that which is why I think I would like to come back to the point that Ustaz Anwar brought up earlier, which was something about in the lines of, he was narrating the story of Luqman al-Hakim, in which what he taught his son is not only about of course the first part is the most important. He taught about religion, la tushrik billah, you do not associate others to God, you do not you raise your prayers, you do everything that is asked to. But on top of that, there was ethics that was taught. And I think that is something important, because on one end, we see sometimes some parents, they focus too much on the doing side, like the more religious part, without balancing it with the ethics. And on the other end, we have on the other side of the spectrum those who focus a lot on the ethics, but at the same time lacking the part which is equally as important, or if not more important, the religious portion, which is belief in God, belief in our beloved Prophet ﷺ, as well as to do our prayers. So I think everyone, I think in the panel, our guests, what we are sharing is the same message, which is there must be balance. And I think that our speakers, anything to add on from what our guests have shared?
I'm what you call it. It's very motivating, and to hear from a person like Mr. Fandi Ahmad, whom I think all Singaporeans know about his situation, and sharing about this kind of ethic that he shared with his children. I hope it becomes a motivation for the youths outside,
yes,
to look into this kind of advice, because actually what he's saying is the Quranic advice. That's what you mentioned about Luqman al-Hakim. And one of the main advice he taught his children is about being humble.
Yes.
He said, "Waqsid fi mashika." Then he said, "Wala tamshi fil ardi maraha." Do not walk on the face of this earth with arrogance. So he was teaching his son about the importance of having any these characteristics of humility. And this is one of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasized in the Quran. Because when you read about Luqman al-Hakim, there are many advice that he gave to the son. But when the Quran is speaking about these so many of the few pointers, it shows that a lot of emphasis has to be given in this particular point. And what you call it, like what Mr. Fandi Ahmad was saying, that this is the principle of the family. So it is an inspiration. I hope for the youth out there, can benefit from the importance of this advice.
InsyaAllah. Shukran Ustaz. Ustaz, Ustaz Khairi, anything Ustaz?
Maybe I would like to, mashallah, everything, mashallah, tonight is fruitful. So I would like just to come from another angle, because I've met some maybe students or youths that they claim that, Ustaz, my mom is not supportive of what I'm inclined to, for example. I wanted something else, but my parents wanted something else. So how do I actually balance out? How do I obey them in order for me not to be derhaka, but at the same time pursuing into what I wanted? So that is the most cliche question that I think most of our Asatizahs really got. So I think that's a real challenge, and I answered to them 3 simple things, which is number 1 is to be silent, number 2 is to be silent, and number 3 is to be silent as much as possible. Do not try as best as possible. Do not try to raise your voice, and also make them understand instead. You wanted them to understand you, because they claim that my parents didn't understand me because you never showed them and you never proved anything to them. So sometimes by showing and by proving, insyaAllah they will understand, and of course make a lot of dua. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open their hearts, open our hearts. So one of the most important element that most of our younger generations miss is the spirituality, which is the dua. Because at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala holds our heart. So when He holds our heart, He holds our parents' heart, He holds our children's heart. So make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the priority, and then insyaAllah everything will go in places. Wallahu a'lam bissawab.
Shukran Ustaz. I feel that this, what was raised by Ustaz Khairi, I think transitions very nicely actually into our next question, which is on the correcting approach of parents to child and the child to parents. Because here, in the second topic here, where we're talking about correcting approach, because we, especially when children become youths, this is what we call talking back to your parents. Or sometimes the youth, they are not following, the parents say something, they tak ikut, they refuse to follow. Or sometimes parents are, for lack of a better word, stubborn. When the children want something, they insist on, and they refuse to listen to, for example, to their children, even though maybe their children have their own reasons. So I think this is something that actually a topic which was raised by a lot of youths, and I think we would like to address. So Ustaz Anwar first, the question is, how do parents navigate between Islamic values and society's pressures in how they discipline their children, how they correct their children? At the same time, what's the correct approach, for youths to correct their parents if, let's say, their parents are doing something which they do not like, or doing something which is not exactly the best way, for example?
I think now we are living in an age where there is a barrier between the youth of today and the parents of yesterday. Relating to my situation, my mom just passed away, and for example, she was born in the year 1943, and like for me, there is a barrier in a sense that is sometimes it is difficult for us to explain any certain situation that we are going through, because the fact that our parents maybe during those times they do not face such a situation as what we are facing. So I believe this comes from my own experience. I face this kind of challenge. So because of the fact that the world change. Last time there is no computers, and as what is now. Last time, what you call our parents, they don't have Facebook and all these social media accounts. Like sometimes, and especially for old parents, it's very difficult for them to understand the situation today, because now today information goes viral and easily. Like with a click of a button, and your message can reach the end of the world. and at the same time also information and it comes into you in a split and a second. So the youth of today are facing this challenge where there is a flood of information and a flood of ideologies, and all these are challenges that is facing the youth of today. Challenges in terms of ideological challenges in terms of even fashion, challenges in terms of language, in every aspect of life. So I believe as parents today it is important, if we have the capacity, and we got no choice except that we have to go to their level and we have to learn to our best capacity about the situation that our children is facing. This is point number one. Point number two, of course, parents themselves have to equip themselves with certain principles in religion that you cannot how you say it, principles in terms of faith or in terms of aqidah, for example, the importance of equipping children with religious knowledge. But then after that, it is important for them to look at the situation and to understand where the children is coming from. Because if this does not happen, then this is the situation. This is the problem that currently that we are facing. That parents don't understand the children, and children also they don't understand the parents. So in both situation, as a parent, it is important to understand the perspective of the child, and at the same time also children also have to understand the perspective of the parents. So we have certain things that are principles in Islam that you cannot maneuver in a sense. And then we have all these changes that is occurring in the world, that we always have to have a bonding with our children, and at the same time also communication. There must be any communication with our children. If we find our children, for example, is facing some difficulties, then we have to try to understand about the challenges that he is facing, and then we try our best together with him to look for the solutions. And for children also, we have to understand about the generation gap that our parents is facing. Like for my case, for example, it's very very difficult for me to relate to my mom. For example, what I'm facing. A lot of the times I don't even tell her about what I'm facing because of the difficulty in imparting certain things. So out of respect, sometimes we keep quiet. And we try not to talk because we do not want also a misunderstanding from the side of our parents. Sometimes when you say something, your parents misunderstand. So down here we are in need of hikmah. We are in need of wisdom as a child or as a youth. We are in need of wisdoms to understand our parents, and how are we able to impart to our parents and to explain about the problems that we are facing. So I believe this is the challenge that we are facing, and we have to look the solutions based on this perspectives. Time is limited, huh? It seems.
Sure, I understand.
Yeah, of course, there are responsibilities, when it comes into the parents, responsibilities, when it comes into the children, and at the same time also we have to find the solutions about the situation that we are in.
Shukran Ustaz. Ustaz Khairi, anything to compliment Ustaz Anwar?
Compliment? MashaAllah. I don't dare to speak on behalf of parents' perspective, because I think we have a good example here. So maybe I would like to just cover on the angle of the children. For example, like I mentioned just now, it is very hard, like Ustaz Anwar mentioned, very hard for us to sometimes tell everything, like literally everything to our parents, because of the generation gap, so on and so forth, and further on because of the gadgets and social media and all. But what we can do is the challenge for us to be able to make them understand. I've worked with people who don't even have WhatsApp in his phone because of ignorance. Because why do I need to install WhatsApp, for example? It's not important for them. But like, how do you actually make them feel it is important? Like, this is important right now. So in order for us to relay that message, in order for us to be able to relay that message to them, it needs a lot of wisdom. So with regards to wisdom, you need to actually have a clean heart. you have to actually be wise on doing it, because otherwise you will be, when you are excessive on certain parts, then you will be regarded as a derhaka, for example. So, like one example, I remember it is very nicely put in the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when two of his grandsons, Sayyidina Hassan and Sayyidina Hussein, there was one time when they saw an old man taking an wudu, for example, taking wudu. But this particular man, he takes the wudu in a wrong manner, in a wrong adab, in a adab where the Prophet ﷺ didn't even teach. So the one who actually witnesses the situation was Sayyidina Hassan and Sayyidina Hussein, which was a young small boys. So how do they actually try to relay that message to that man? They actually play a role where one of them make it as if it is a wrong way to take wudu in front of that man, and then the other one trying to correct the other one. So it is a subtle thing, it is a wisdom. I remember one time, with regards to on behalf, I mean, like, we are now have a football legend here. I want to talk about football. Can I? Okay.
Please do.
So I remember one time in Pasir Ris, in my arwah grandmother's house lah, in the lobby, we didn't play with real football. We play with a tin can. So ketekang. Then suddenly this one neighbor, he's not a Muslim, he's a non-Muslim. Then me and my cousins, we were playing. Then suddenly this one man opened the door, like very hard, red eye, angry face. He looked at us and then trying to scold us. But all of my cousins ran away. I stood still there, and then what he gave after that was really, really shocking. I mean, like, it shocked me. He gave us a tennis ball in order for us to play. That is wisdom. You see, that he didn't scold us, and it comes from a non-Muslim. So if you really think thoroughly, like, how do you want to relay that message? If you think thoroughly, take a 5-second rule. Maybe you can sit down and also like think, what is the consequences of me doing this? What is the consequences if me doing that? So if you think thoroughly, inshallah, you will find a good solution. That is me complimenting Ustaz Anwar's statement. Wallahu a'lam bishawab. Maybe
Shukran, Ustaz.
Yeah.
I think the stories that were shared, mashallah, I think truly something that we can relate to, because yes, we are in front of a football legend, and I think a lot of us we play football as when we are young. So I think we can relate to it, mashallah. Shukran, Ustaz. So coming back to our respected guest, what do you think of what was said? Because I feel for yourself, Fandi, you have 5 children. Yeah. So and they are in their youths, right. and they are all over the world. So I'm sure there will come situations in which you face. One is when they want, let's say, something from you. Let's say they want something to change from the parents' perspective, and at the same time, let's say you see something that you don't really like about them. So, based on what was shared by our 2 speakers, what do you have to share with us?
A few things. Importantly is about my son. After that, about my mother, because older generation, like Ustaz Anwar said, is very sensitive, but it's good to bring up about my mother. But first, my son, I've never forced them to play football. I've never, because I think studies is important, because I say if you want to be a footballer, you must have all these ingredients of discipline, humility, honesty, working hard, everything. But important, if they ask me something that I am against, I would tell them nicely. And they respect me very much because they know what we've been through as a family. So this is important because they understand well where we're coming from. And that is important. I think when they were very young, I'm not sure how old he was when mom was sick. You were 4 or 5 years old maybe.
Yeah.
So we were in Jakarta. So they took responsibility being a parent, because 4 of them, 5 of them, but the other one was about 6 months. And when my wife fall ill that time, they took over because my job as a coach, for while I travel, Indonesia is big, huge. When you travel from Jakarta to 𝐔𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐳 take about 8 to 10 hours. You can't believe that. So she was very ill, very sick, and then I taught them how to tackle the issues when something happens. So these kids, they were 5, 7, 8, and 11, I think. They listened to me because they respect, and I said, this is your mom, I'm not around, you have to take care. Because she had a stroke and very badly ill that time. So when I came back, I find that they settle everything. There's no calling of me, emergency, nothing. I respect them because they listen. And it's important that we also listen to them. When they're asking me to buy something, I always question, why is it very important? Because like you said, now all this modern time, everything they have. Before anything, the news, they already know something happening here. You know, all this media, social media. So sometimes we are surprised. But I mean, give it to them because it's a new generation. But when we go back to our old parents, so I have also sometimes disagreement with my mom because she's actually, I don't know, 78 is quite old or not, I'm not sure. Because she seems strong, but she's like a footballer. You know why I said she's like a footballer? She had operation so many times. The knees, hip replacement, everything. But the stubbornness, I cannot take it. She used to live with my sister. And suddenly she said she wants to be on her own. So my sister said, you tell her, I tell her. I also get confused because they all worried because we don't want to cause a stir, a fight. It's important we have understanding. So they think I'm the best person to speak to her. So after a while, talk to her, you are old, because she cannot, that time she was just recovering, she cannot be alone, you know. The last one, operation, she stayed with me for 1 week. After that, she wants to go back. So what we have to do? So kita sebagai anak, I think we also mengalah. So we have to put down and then we said, okay, this is the best solution because I think she needs something to be independent maybe. She wants to be on her own. So we had to get a place for her to stay. She wants to be alone and don't want maid. That is a problem for us. And she been falling. Once she fall, I think 4 a.m. in the morning, nobody knows. Until 12 o'clock in the afternoon, she crawled. She picked up the phone and called. These things happened to her. She fell down. So that was very scary for us because there's nobody home. So we took a maid and she wasn't happy with the maid. That's why I feel very frustrated sometimes. But as a son, I think we have to mengalah. We have to, really, this is our mother. We have to take care. So there's a difference because the generation, like you mentioned, Ustaz Anwar just now, is a lot different. The thinking is different. So at the end of the day, we are the kids, whatever it is, I think we have to give it to her. Sure. Or whoever, like our parents, we must respect. Even though sometimes it's painful, but we take it. Until today, she's very happy there, alone, but always come. She's supposed to go for exercises every day. She said, I exercise in 10 meters, in, out, walking from kitchen to the hall. So sometimes I always ask the maid, whether she goes, dia susah ibu, dia nggak mau. So sometimes I confuse. When I go there, she always grumbles, but she's been there for me every time when I started playing. She's my ardent supporter. I must respect. I know she's my mother. That's why it's important we have this understanding. Whatever it is, we are the child, we have to give it. I think so. I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but I think we have to give way because, this is a new world, but they are still behind, and like phone as well, like you say, all the WhatsApp, it's very important to have the two-way communication and understanding. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Fandi. I think he has shared a lot. You have shared a lot of things, which I think just in itself, it is something that we can all learn so much from. And I think I want to take the opinions of our youth here on here because I think it's very important. This topic, after all, I think especially this question, a lot of things were raised by our Asatizah on how youths, how they manage parents. in terms of, especially as mentioned, you know better, generational gap with the technology differences, one's IT savvy, one's IT old age lah, Windows 95 age, So what do you have to say, to represent, not to say represent, I'm not putting the pressure on you, but as just a view from a youth, what do you think?
I think first of all we have to see what our parents have gone through, because now everything, like my dad said, they try and put it on a plate for us, but back in the days it was quite hard. So we just have to try and think through, like back in the days, how hard it was, like to work for things. So we have to be grateful for everything we can get. And first of all, like one example, my dad, we asked him to change the phone to a new phone, and then he's like, no need lah, I can use this. And like, so I think we should just be grateful for what we have, and yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I think what you have raised is very important. And I think what Ustaz Khairi also mentioned just now is, I tie it back, is what he said was, take 5 seconds. I think this is something that's very important. Sometimes when your parents say something that you don't like, or as a child, or as a parent, your youth child tells you something that you don't like, I think both parties should take 5 seconds. Not, because you are lagging or what, but because this 5 seconds is to quickly reflect on your mind, what's the next decision, what's the wise decision. And I think our Asatizah both mentioned the word hikmah, wisdom. It's something that if you give yourself an extra 5 seconds, you wouldn't, I'm sure it will make wonders, it plays wonders in what's the process in the mind, on what is the best step next to take from whatever the statement that has been said, whether you're happy or unhappy or, frustrated, as Wani mentioned. So any of our speakers have anything to add on before we move on to the next question, inshallah?
I just, before I forget, and also because of the fact that time is very limited, there is an important thing that I would like to share from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this particular hadith is narrated in Sahih Bukhari and also in Muslim, where our ulama they call it the hadith of Jibril. And one of the questions that were asked by Jibril alayhi salam to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is about the signs of the hour. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned a few signs. So one of the signs, and he said, "Antalida al-amatu rabbataha," that when you find a slave woman giving birth to her master, then that is a sign of the nearness of the Qiyamah. So our scholars they interpret this particular hadith, and what is the meaning of a slave woman who gives birth to the master? And how can a slave woman give birth to the master? So one of the interpretation, and this is mentioned also by Habib Abu Bakr al-Mashhur, for example, in his kitab lately, he mentioned that one of the meanings is that you have a girl, a woman, and giving birth to a female child, and that female child disrespect her and treating her as though she's a slave woman. So as though now the daughter becomes the master, and the mother becomes the slave. So the Prophet ﷺ is saying that if you find this happen in the society, then this is a sign that Qiyamah is near. So today, for example, we find in some countries, wallahu alam, in some countries, daughters, for example, they regard their mother literally as though they are slave, in the sense that the mothers have to wash the clothes, the mother has to serve the daughter, the mother has to, and this also our ulama mentioned, it also refers to sons and to males. But what I'm trying to say, the conclusion of this situation is the lack of tarbiyah that is present in our times. That when a time it happens, like the time that we are in, it shows that there is a lack of nurturing of children Islamically, and likewise nurturing of ethics in the Muslim household. And this is a big problem that is happening in our times today, whether we are living in Singapore or outside of Singapore. The importance of us looking into the aspects of nurturing our children well. Nurturing in terms, and as like our guest speaks about the importance of nurturing ethics in children, and teaching them to be independent. And likewise also, we have to think of a way how we can be able to nurture them spiritually, Islamically. Because as what I mentioned earlier, children today they are exposed to many ideologies. And so many of these ideologies is very, very damaging that can make any children think about things that is against any Islam or apostasy and so on and so forth. So today the responsibility and your parents I feel is very great. How are we able to find the solutions in this kind of nurture, in this kind of tarbiyah? So we have to look into the life of our children in terms of their belief, in terms of their Islamic practices, in terms of their conduct, in terms of their interactions with fellow friends, in terms of their situation with social media. Today, I believe as a parents it is important for us to look into what our children is looking at the social media and the friends, the circle of friends that they are befriending, because all these things as our Prophet ﷺ mentioned, al-mar'u ala dini khalilihi, because the religion of a person depends on the religion of the friend. So it is also important today, I believe, as parents also we have to look at who are the friends that our children is mixing with, because all these are the influences that can influence our children. If we are not careful, can influence them in a negative way. So I know time is short, but I hope that it is an advice for me. I'm not saying this because I'm an expert in this, but to me, I benefited from this, and I'm trying my best. My children are still small. I have experiences with my mom and my dad, and I am struggling. I can see the challenges, and even though they are not like the age of Ilhan yet, but I'm having this worry in reality. We pray that Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala make it easy, inshallah. For taking a lot of time.
Inshallah. But I think if it's okay, we move on to the next question. Inshallah, if we have any other comments about this, we can discuss this again later during the Q&A session, inshallah. So our third topic, and I think our final topic question before we move to Q&A, it's about nagging. So here, I think even the topic question that we have for our forum today, do I have to repeat myself? That is in itself nagging. So I think that this is something that youths want to address, because I think the most traditional way is we always, as children when we are growing up, when we don't do something, let's say very simply, like for example solat, dah solat, have you prayed, how many times? Nag, why you nag, clean your room. Yeah. So I guess this is not only the youth's perspective, now it's even on the parents' perspective, because when the children start to grow older in their youths, they have some, what I would say, they have some requests from their parents, and then they will tell their parents, do it like this. So for example, even simple things like teaching technology, because as you know, we have mentioned and we made clear there's a technological generational gap. So for example, when parents are asking how to send this, for example, email, or how to edit this file, things like that, and then we teach them, and then it becomes very nagging, because even now the youth become the teacher, because the youth and then the children are teaching. I say already, right? How many times do it like so? Now nagging is both sides. It used to be one side, but now they are old enough, it becomes two-sided. So now the question I have for our Asatizahs is, how is it that these both parties they perceive the definition of nagging, and how do you think is a way that we can both parties come to a mutual understanding of this particular nagging that both parties are now receiving? Stas, please.
The first thing I believe, and we have to look at the reason or the concept behind what is emphasized in that definition of nagging. For example, a lot of parents, out of concern and out of love for the children, they tend to repeat certain things as an emphasis, because they feel that their children is not hearing them, or the children is doing things that are wrong, and the parents, out of love towards the children, repeat certain things. But from the child perspective, he become bored, because he's saying how many times my parents wants to tell me I'm old enough to understand certain things. So what is important, that we have to look at the reason behind this nagging. And if the parents, for example, tells the children, about the importance of prayers, and for example, every time the time when prayers come, and again, the parents and will remind the child, my child, the time of prayers and have come, and please and perform any of your prayers. So behind this message is goodness. And what the parent want for the child is something that is good. So this is point number one. So it is important for the child to acknowledge that it is out of love of the parents, and it is out of the concern from the parents, and that the parents want goodness for them. If there is this kind of understanding, I don't think there will be much issues between the child and the parent. The problem can come if parents for example is emphasizing on certain things that itself is not correct. Itself is not any correct, and the child feels that there is any mistake. The parents nag about certain things which does not bring goodness for example towards any child. For example, the parents speak badly about people for example, or teaching the children vulgar languages, or teaching the children to have a sense of hatred towards the neighbors, or backbiting and so on and so forth. So now it is the challenge of the child to acknowledge and to understand that what the parents is saying is not correct. So when the child understand that what is mentioned is not correct, then the child cannot obey the parents in such a situation, because in Islam for example, there is no obedience towards something that can bring harm, or that is sinful for example. So in the Quran also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about this situation where there is a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he entered into the fold of Islam, the mother is not happy. The mother is not happy because he became a Muslim. Mother is non-Muslim. So the mother scolded him and told him to revert back to their religion. So he came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for advice, and the Prophet mentioned, لا معصية الخالق لطاعة المخلوق. أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم, there is no obedience towards a creation when it comes to disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in this situation, again, it requires wisdom. How is the child able to impart the message to the parents that what he is nagging, or what she is nagging is something that is not correct, in a way that is respectful to the parents. When it comes to the first situation, if the situation is correct, the parents is nagging out of a good cause, then there must be a common understanding between the child and the parents. And it is important for the child to understand the perspective of where the parents is coming from, and to have patience in reality. In reality, having obedience towards parents, and also parents nurturing your children. The Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ speaks about the importance of having patience, because in Islam, anything that gives you any benefit, it requires a lot in your patience. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after he speaks about iman, he speaks about ta'atul walidain. He speaks about obedience towards parents, and it shows the difficulty in obeying parents. It's not something that is difficult, and likewise to be a good child also, it is not easy. It requires a lot of sacrifice in terms of emotion, sacrifice in terms of action. So it requires a high level of patience, high level of understanding, and all this goes back to the importance of having a good communication with our parents, inshallah.
Shukran, Ustaz. I think great sharing by Ustaz Anwar. But before I comment or I add anything, I would like to ask Ustaz Khairi anything to complement Ustaz Anwar's statements.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. With regards to the definition of nagging itself, it means a repetitive command, or repetitive instructions, or repetitive sentence that is the first statement, like for example, it is not been heard, or it is not been understood well. So like I said just now, as a perspective from children towards the parents, as mentioned as Ustaz Anwar multiple times during this particular sitting alone, the importance of listening or obeying our parents, it's very important to the level where it is kind of like difficult. It is like difficult. So because but it is doable. And when it speaks about nagging, I remember there's a sharing from one of my teachers, and then he mentioned about the hadith in the book of Bukhari, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of his aunt actually nagged at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Sahaba was waiting what will be the reaction of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But they only see that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam keep silent. Just let because it is in their nature to actually express their emotions. So we really believe that they really wanted the best for all of us, for their children. So you will never ever see a parent who actually wanted something bad for their children. So it is just the miscommunication or the misunderstanding of the message that been relaying to us. So I mean, like, how we balance and how we actually wanted to make everyone understand that, oh, this is something good, this is something beneficial for you. So I remember, this is from my own personal experience. My father used to tell me this, Khairi, you always learn the hard way. Because there's some like rebellious feeling in me, like I wanted to try something. If I fail it, let me fail it. So I feel the failure. So my parents, they are more cautious. So you know that there's a hole in front of you. We are telling you that there's a hole in front of you. So you might want to divert your direction. So, but for me, I mean, like, this is personal. For me, like, okay, maybe I want to see the hole. But Allahu Alam, I fell into the hole. But then I climbed up the hole. And I know that, okay, my parents are right. So I think that is something that maybe, I mean, like, yeah. I'm not saying this because I hope I won't fail my parents, inshallah. But we are still trying to be the best. And we are still trying to observe the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And okay, last, can I?
Sure, Ustaz, please.
According to some of the scholars, the hikmah or the wisdom why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with his takdir, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was born yatim. Apa yatim?
Orphan.
An orphan, without the father. And soon after he was 6 years old, when Rasulullah SAW and his mother, Sayyidatina Aminah, visited the grave of the late father, on the way back, Sayyidatina Aminah passed on. So the wisdom that the ulama say that why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away these two important lives of our beloved Prophet SAW, both his parents, is because hopefully Nabi SAW won't have the chance to be disobedient child towards his parents. One of the wisdom. So mashallah, that is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took care of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But of course, everyone need the dua from their parents, and of course we know that how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was being brought up. And when we are talking about, oh, I'm being rebellious because I've been brought up in a broken family. So if you want to talk about broken family, you read the story of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He came from the most broken family. No father, no mother, no grandfather, no uncles. And then like how his story, mashallah, it is I mean, like, it's a lengthy one, but maybe we can reflect on that so as we can reflect upon ourselves and look where we are now, and look how our Prophet SAW went through the hardships compared to us right now. Wallahu alam sawab.
Shukran, Ustaz. I think that before we open to discussion, what I think I want to highlight here is that both our speakers have mentioned on this thing which is, I think, we cannot avoid, which is that being obedient to our parents is not easy. Both our speakers have mentioned that in different ways, of course. They quoted the Quran. That it was mentioned that being obedient children to your parents is not an easy task. So I think if we first understand that first, I can underline that to ourselves. Then we can understand why is it that sometimes, or more often than not, inevitably, we have disagreements with them. It's because it's not meant to be easy. I think this is something you must understand, because sometimes I feel sometimes children, they're like, they expect it to be a smooth sailing ride with their parents, and it's never the case because it's not meant to be easy. I think that is something that if we reflect upon, maybe it gives us a bit more patience to communicate with our parents. So Fandi, I think you again. The things that were raised by our speakers, what do you have to say about what was shared?
I agree with Ustaz Anwar, what he mentioned about the patience, and all he has said just now. It's important that the understanding between child and parent
they need to come together because we also been nagged before. Sometimes we get frustrated, but both parents and child need to understand. But it's always the child must give way, whatever it is. I think the child must give way to the parents. But of course, nagging, I nag at him sometimes. Do I nag?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes. Of course, you have to nag sometimes. Sometimes, hey, that's my belum. Every time. Sometimes they put their games, headphone, play the game, and no, they never listen. And then sometimes people bell, and then we have to shout. So sometimes, then they will come. So you know the reaction. But I agree, it's all about patience, listening, and obedience. But they know during our time, my mom call you one time, tak ada dia, rotan. Kena satu, rotan. You don't listen to me. You know, that's our way last time, but we used to it. But this new generation, they are different. You whack them, they leave the home. They leave the home, they got, at home I've got no peace. But I think it's all about the understanding. The relationship must be strong when they have more conversation together at home. You know, we as parents, we must advise, hey, I'm talking to you nicely, you know. I don't like to nag because we care. We care for the kids, you know, because we worry that they make mistake. We don't want them to make mistake. But sometimes it's good they make mistake, they learn. But sometimes they never learn. That is the biggest problem. So for me, important, like Ustad again said, the obedient, willing to listen, and one more thing, the understanding. That is very purely perfect, because if we understand each other, we respect at this level, but even though I'm a child, but I have to respect more. And the child must also look at the other end, the parents, what they are thinking, because they must know, my parents are thinking about me, caring about me, don't want me to fail, don't want me to do bad things, they want you to succeed. So I think you must listen to me.
MashaAllah.
I think that's my take, because everything has been said by Ustad Anwar.
Okay. Thank you so much, Randy. So now I would like to take the take of your son, because you are on the receiving end of what we said was no nagging, because you acknowledged just now that your father and your parents sometimes nag at you. So what do you think, especially with what our speakers have shared, on this particular issue on nagging that youth face and sometimes parents also face from youth? What do you think?
Okay, I think, let's say if I get nagged at, right? I think the first time I won't be, the volume that my dad nags at me will be like, Ilhan, come on, go, and you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The second time, maybe a bit louder. The third time, very loud, maybe. So I think once you get to that point, I think the children should already know that, okay, he's trying to tell you something for you to like learn from it and for you to become better. So maybe sometimes it's not your fault, right? Yes. But after a while, I think even their own parents will go back and reflect. Even parents reflect, I think, right? They reflect and think, oh yeah, maybe I'm being too harsh or something, right? So this is where I think the bond with all 5 kids with my dad is very strong, and my mom. So the bond is there and the communication is very good. So now in the house, less nagging, I can say.
Alhamdulillah. So I think here what they have presented to us, our father-son duo here, what they have represented to us is a solution. Might not fit for everyone, but here it's a possible solution that we can have, which is in a household where there is strong bond, there is strong understanding, there is strong communication between parents and their children and children with their parents. Even what Ilhan mentioned just now, the amount of nagging drops. And I think this is something that we should understand, because it means that there is a correlation between the bond of the family together with the amount of nagging that the children receive. Because when you communicate better, I think as Ustaz Anwar actually, when he started off straight off, he said, if there's understanding, we won't even be talking about this question anymore. Because when there's understanding, there's no need to nag. Right? I think all of us agree here. So both parties should come together to try to listen better, and in hopes that inshallah, of course it's very much easier said than done, but we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to always help us inshallah in our journey to become better children and to become better parents inshallah. So Shukran to all of our guests and Asatizah. Inshallah, if we have comments about what was said, we can always bring back what was said just now. We will now go on to the Q&A session. So we have some questions here with us. Inshallah, as I think we have raised already to our viewers, if let's say you have any questions, you can ask it live on Facebook, inshallah. But I would like to firstly say that we might not have the time to answer all, but we will be answering the more, pertinent and more urgent questions, inshallah. So the first question I have is directed to Ustaz Anwar, which is, why is it important for us to talk to our parents about our problems and feelings and thoughts, when I can perhaps just talk to a counselor or I can just Google it? Because our children now, everyone has smartphones. Yeah. So I feel that you not only when it comes to religious matters, when it comes to worldly matters, also everything is Sheikh Google. Everyone refers to Google. So why is it still important to have, for us, our go-to is still our parents? Ustaz, please.
It is important in Islam that we must understand that we have responsibilities towards our parents. And this is wajib, in a sense, it is compulsory upon every child to not only respect the parents, but also to help the parents and to provide for the parents. So it is important for us and children to have an understanding for parents, as our guest Mr. Fandi mentioned earlier. This is to facilitate this responsibility that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has given us. If we do not have communication with our parents, there will be a lot of tendencies, there will be a lot of misunderstandings, and misunderstandings can lead to serious issues. It can lead to children leaving houses, or children disrespecting any parents, likewise making parents angry towards children. And all this will come to a situation where a child is unable to fulfill his responsibilities as a child to the parents, and also parents will have difficulties in fulfilling their responsibilities towards any children. So communication between the child and the parents is very, very crucial. And we find, for example, in the Quran, there is a story of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son. And we find, for example, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala mentioned that Nabi Ismail alayhi salam, when he became he reached an age of puberty, Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam does mushawarah, asks the son for opinion. Imagine a prophet of Allah, Ibrahim alayhi salam, and Allah mentioned in the Quran that Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam asks the son for an opinion for something that he is going about to do. So here Islam speaks about the importance of having communication, and also asking for opinion, even as parents. Before we do a particular thing, for example, that involves the children, it is very, very important for us to ask the opinion of the child. And this is in a situation if the child has reached puberty. If the child has reached puberty, this is a very important factor to tell us about the importance of communication, and also the importance of doing things together with the children, so that these responsibilities, as what I mentioned, can be achieved, so that there is no clash between parents and children. The problem is if there is no such communication between children and parents, as what you mentioned, children go to Google, for example, or listen to some other people. Maybe that person is speaking about something that is not applicable to the context that the children has in the household. So this can become a problem, because different situation has different rulings. Even in fiqh, my situation is not the same as another person's situation. My situation with my parents is different than my friend's situation with his parents. So I have to look at the perspective of my situation on how for me to understand the aspect of obedience towards my parents. My friend's situation is different from my situation. So we cannot apply certain things generally. There are certain concepts that can be applied generally when we speak about obedience and so forth and so on and so forth. But there are certain things he has to look in situations. And this is the thing that requires a lot of wisdom. So applying something that does not befit the situation that we are in, it does not gives any benefit to our situation. So that goes to answer the question about the importance of having a good communications with parents, so that no misunderstandings can occur, inshallah.
Shukran, Ustaz. I think to just summarize the answer, it is just about context. Because the reason why we talk to our parents or why we communicate our problems to our parents is they understand our situation best. If we were to go to other people or we listen to friends, no, let's say our friends, they say, oh, this is how I handle, no. But the thing is, the context is different. The family is different. The upbringing is different. So, especially now, friends at least, no, they're in Singapore. It's localized. But if once you Google it, all the more it's worse because now you are listening to people commenting from all over, from Europe, from other parts of Asia, in which I think, as Ustaz mentioned, the context is different. The understanding is different. The upbringing is different. So because of that, no, there will be, if you force your situation into their situation, there will be problems that will come up. So I think this is why Ustaz mentioned very important for us to keep a helpline, an open line communication between parents and children with parents, inshallah. So our second question is for Ustaz Khairi. Ustaz, the question is that a person's asking, why do my parents and grandparents like to degrade me or make me feel I'm not good enough? I think it happens both privately and publicly. So I guess it happens when you are being compared to other people's children. Tengok anak si Cik Beda macam gini, for example lah. No, so there's always a lot this issue that you compare, comparative between or there is some degradation of your own children, be it in private between you and the person or in public in the presence of others. So Ustaz, please.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. As much as we want to appreciate the inputs from our parents, from our grandparents also, I think they really want the best for us. So maybe the way that they relay the message, the way that we can't accept it, maybe it's embarrassing, maybe it's humiliating. For example, if it's being published in social media, for example, now we have Facebook and we have parents, I think, using Facebook, right? And even grandparents, the nenek even have a Facebook account.
Inshallah.
So there are some etiquettes and some things that I think Ustaz Anwar mentioned before, that even if they have the social media account, they don't really know the etiquettes of putting it. You see, like some things that they don't have or they don't need to mention in Facebook, for example. So, like a perspective of a child, I think we have to, like Fandi mentioned, be patient and also mengalah. Maknanya we have to kurangkan rasa kecil hati. Try as best as possible to lessen, to sacrifice our emotion. Of course, as much as we wanted to feel or we want our emotion to be respected, but we need to also sacrifice some things in order for other things to give in. And at the same time, that is how we would be able to respect and we would able to so-called counter the situation in a better manner. So by proving, by showing. So for example, like the mother or the grandmother wanted something else which is not really applicable, which is not really good or accessible for that particular child. In a sense, show them in a way that you are more successful or more succeed in a different path, so that they will feel, oh, okay, you are doing well, maybe. So I think just now it's a good example where, but I think Ilhan also play football. Like for example, let's say if Ilhan is not successful in football, and let's say if Fandi enforce, but he's not. So maybe he's striving in some other channels and successfully. So if you really want it, you do it properly. So that is how not by talking back, but by showing and by proving. And that is all that I have for now. Wallahu a'lam.
Shukran, Ustaz. I think if I can summarize the answer very simply is that actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
If it comes down to it, if let's say no, why are you not like this? Why are you not like that? If you might not carry out it that way, show them that you can be better in another way.
Yes.
Because I think that success does not come from one particular profession, does not come from one particular subject. It comes from success can be measured through many means. And I think that parents also, if they understand that on that particular notion that success comes from many other means, and when children, they can show more than they express, inshallah, there will be less conflict in this area, inshallah. So I think our next question is for our legend footballer here, Mr. Fandi Ahmad. So the question here is, I think, is very relevant for our youth these days, because the question is about smoking. And I think that now it's becoming more prevalent because it's more accessible, I feel. So now the question is, how would you discourage children from smoking, from vaping, from drinking, from taking drugs? Because children are naturally curious and they are easily influenced, because especially when become youths, they are in that age of being influenceable. Yeah. So how did you manage to keep yourself? Because as a footballer, no, I'm sure you have many friends. So how did you yourself manage to keep away from all of these vices when you were on your youth, and what do you advise to the youth currently?
Yeah, it's very important to take the lead as a parent. You know, we must show the lead by showing good example. It's important because let's say like cigarette, drugs, alcohol, whatever, babes or whatever. It's important that these are all against Islamic rules. Yeah, as a Muslim, I don't drink, don't smoke. I can still play football. I can enjoy life without that. So I think they should know, because as parents we must stress to them how dangerous drug is, how dangerous maybe cigarette for the lungs, and of course alcohol. You know, when you get high, you feel everything. The world is flying. So I don't know. I never tasted it. Anyway, I mean, I was brought up when I was young. My father used to be a smoker. I was 8, 9 years old. After that, he had some illness of the lungs and he stopped. And he warned me, never smoke. It's not good for you. So as a young boy, I already know. You want to be a footballer, you stay away from this. Stay away. This is not good. Drugs, all this drinking, all. So it's important that we always show good example. We promote healthy lifestyle. And as I wanted to be a footballer when I was young, I was 7, 8 years old. And he said, this is the way. He gave me a path, the way to make it. Mm-hmm. So it's important thing, you must have the discipline, determination, dedication. And also what I've been said just now is about mixing in a group. So in a group of friends, which sometimes is not very important, but we don't want to shoo them away or you have to move away because it's still your friends. When I moved from Woodbridge, not in the hospital, I stay in the quarters actually. When you say Woodbridge, people think we are crazy. Anyway, it's the quarters I live. Then when my parents separated, I moved to close to here, Upper Jalan Eunos, at the water tank there, opposite Kaki Bukit Secondary School. So they are friends. I have a lot of friends playing football, and some of them are into smoking, some of them are into drugs, into drinking. But for me, it's important that I have that strength. You must have that, you must gain respect from them. So important is to gain respect from them and make sure they respect you. Because in a football team, in a group, which always have a small group or maybe sometimes bigger group, we have always the majority of players who maybe don't smoke and 1 or 2 smokers. So we make it like a rule between us. If 5 of us don't smoke, it's good. But if one of you is a smoker, we make sure he get out from here. Once you finish smoking, you come back. So if 3 of us are smokers, the 2 has to go away. So we make that, it's like a rule and becomes a very good vibe with the others because, hey, this is good. We're still friends. Doesn't mean I don't like you to smoke or you smoke. I don't care, but we're still friends. But how do we tell them? As an athlete, they should know, but importantly, they want to change. But we always advise them. You see, for instance, like drinking, especially like for me, it's very challenging. When I was young, I was 19 plus, 20. After that, I went back to Europe. I was very young. When you play in Europe, it's all this, especially like in Amsterdam, it's all drugs, marijuana, hashish, everything, and party. So, like I was in Groningen in the north, when I was playing, it's challenging. And you have to be strong. You have to really be strong, but Important thing, you make them respect you, your teammates. Because after every game when we win, come on, Fandi, let's go. They speak Dutch. I learn speak Dutch and all. We go to the club. But before we travel to the club, go to the club, I always tell my friends, hey, I'm not going to drink, okay? I tell them, you respect me, I respect you. Whatever it is, when we go there, you buy me orange juice or a Coke, Coca-Cola. If you buy me a beer or anything, whiskey or what, I will leave. No, Fandi. We respect you. Every time we know you are Muslim, we respect. We buy you drink, soft drink, okay? Okay, I can listen with you, listen to music. I'm happy because once you stamp your authority, not to your friends, but to tell them, I cannot drink. I'm a Muslim. And I don't, we like to party, but I go to the clubs. Sincerely, when I was young, I go to the club, listen to music. Maybe wrong or not. Important is you know yourself what you do inside. So I don't drink, I don't smoke, but I still got a lot of friends who are smokers, drinkers, and drug addicts. And every time we try to advise them, but at the end of the day, we can only tell 1, 2, 3 times. But after that, it's not about us anymore. But important for them to stay away because these drugs and cigarettes or whatever is bad for your health. As parents, we must always advise, especially my kids, please don't let me catch you on smoking or drinking. So they always, before they go out to anywhere, they travel, I always remind them, be careful of where you go. Sometimes people spike your drink, you don't know. People like to spike. I remember this case many times in Singapore. They spike and you get drunk, you don't know anything. So it's very dangerous. So it's important that when you go to the club, when you leave your drinks on the table, somebody could have put something. You don't know. You never know. It's better you buy a bottle of Coca-Cola or whatever, juice. You must hold it every time because this is a new world. Everybody is free to do what they want, but you never know. So for me, I always take precaution. So important thing is always to remind our kids, stay away from all this, especially when you are in a group where they are always mix all these things, That means that is not a good group to be with. They're still your friends, but you have a way. Like I said, we make a group, hey, this one always drink. And so once they finish, they are clean, you come, okay. But not when they are having fun and all this. I think it's dangerous. So for me, it's again, don't mix with those people because it'll get you into trouble.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Fendi. I think here he raised a lot of important points here. I think one of them is that, it's important to see who's the group of people that you are with. And also at the same time, it's to advise them. If let's say, if let's say you are a youth where you are faced with groups of friends who are like that, to advise them. And at the same time, is to distance yourself from them when they are doing whatever it is that we do not condone. But at the same time, I feel it's one thing which is very important is you must have a backbone. You must stand by your principles. Because this is the principles that the religion has taught us, the principles that our parents have imparted into us since we were young. And if we do not sway from the principles that the religion has taught us, that our parents have taught us, which is, stay away from this, stay away from this, stay away from this, inshallah, there shouldn't be a problem because even if you are put in a situation where majority might not be the good doers, for example, you will prevail because you stand by your principles and you know that this is what you must do to stay yourself clean, to be a good servant of Allah and to also follow the commands of your parents.
So maybe also there's one more thing is sometimes the youth when they are in a group they have been peer pressure, that is also important. So that's why it's important that they have that self-discipline and be strong mentally to avoid all the people who asking them to do this or that. Because the peer pressure sometimes, because they want to be part of the group. Sometimes that group, they want to be famous sometimes. So this way, I think we have to be careful. Yeah.
I think peer pressure also is a very important point that, even despite your friends, asking you, coercing you to do something that is not right, if you know it's not right, then If you know it in the bottom of your heart that it's not right, then you have to protect yourself from it, inshallah. So I think our fourth question here is for Ilhan. Because I think with your father here, I think do you sometimes feel anxious or nervous when you want to talk with your parents? And if let's say if yes, how do you overcome that? And if no, how do you develop that kind of level of comfort and trust in your communication with your parents? Because just now you were already sharing about that. So Ilhan, please.
Honestly, I don't really get anxious or nervous because I'm blessed to have my dad as my coach last year. So I built that chemistry and bond on the field. And whereas for my mom, it's slightly different because she's not on the field. But like if I'm not on the field, I'm rather with my mom, maybe going out for lunch or something like that. So I'm not as nervous, not because I'm always on the field and we build that bond, but because I think as a family, my dad is quite a fun guy. Like at home, he's like very friendly and he's like our friend basically. But when it's time to study, for example, because it's very important, he asks us to study, and when it's time to pray, he always reminds us to go and pray. And like when it's time to focus, you focus. When it's time to play, you play. So like there's always good times and bad times. So I think from then, like I built that chemistry with my dad and my mom. So the level of trust and honesty is there, and that's why I think both my mom and dad allowed me to go to the UK by myself to study, because it's very hard to go on yourself because once the parents will be worried for you, but I think they trust me enough, and I think that's important to have a good bond with your parents so you can build that trust. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Ilhan. I think here's something important, which is that we all aspire to have this kind of comfort and to have this kind of understanding and communication, be it as parents to your children or children with your parents, because I think what we have seen here is that there are fruits to good communication. Good communication will result in less conflict. Good communication will result in, if anything, I feel more benefits, that the children will be able to get more independence, more their opinions will be more heard. And I think that this is something that's very important, because I think the youth these days, we want to be heard. And at the same time, parents also want to be heard. So if there's good communication, means that both sides will be heard. And I think what's important here is that if both sides are heard, everyone's happy.
Yeah,
so inshallah, yes.
Also, I think if you yourself know you're doing the right thing, there's no way that you should be nervous or anxious, because you can just be open to your parents. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Thank you. I think that brings back to a very iconic Malay verse, berani kerana benar, takut kerana salah. You are brave because you know that you are right. If you are sharing something that is very important, you are communicating to your parents because you know you did something, you know that you are right, so you have nothing to be scared of. I think you mentioned it's a very important point here. So, and if you are scared, it's because you know that you are wrong. And if you know that you are wrong, then I think it's best to own up, and be open about it to your parents, to have a more open communication with them. So, I think we just have our fifth question, our final targeted question to Ustaz Anwar here. I think it's a very big topic. Ustaz Anwar, thank you so much for offering to answer. Is that we have received questions about the current topics of LGBT issues. So the question here is how to open up about LGBT tendencies, or even discuss these sensitive topics with parents, because this the youth now, we are, as you mentioned, exposed to all of these things on everywhere where we see. So how do you discuss this with parents without parents also at the same time freaking out, or they are going out of their mind, they're like, why are you talking to this about me? So yeah, so because LGBT is everywhere, but they cannot talk to their parents. They feel that they cannot talk to their parents because they cannot talk to their parents, they get the answers from elsewhere. So how, Ustaz, do you suggest we address this?
Firstly, before I address the question about the issue of LGBT, it is important in as parents, and based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where the Prophet mentioned when a child has reached 7 years of age, number one, and the Prophet ﷺ mentioned muru awladakum salah, yani command them to perform any prayers. And then after that, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned wa fariqu bainahum fil madaji', to separate the place of their sleeping, and do not put any in the same bed, son and a daughter. We find that many a times a boy has a tendency to be like a girl, or a girl has a tendency to be like a boy. One of the main reasons is that during their childhood, this is not any emphasized. In a sense, like some parents, for example, happily, for example, if they have a son, giving them mixing the son with women, and giving clothes girls clothes to be worn on their sons and so on. All this gives an effect to the tendency of a child when he grows up to become the opposite gender. So before I answer that question, this is the thing that we as parents we have to be careful, especially nowadays, and we have to look carefully into this. The Prophet ﷺ speaks about this importance. And also in our Islamic tradition, it is not permissible if a child has reached the discretionary age, and we call the age of tamyiz, that it is not permissible for a boy to salam a woman, and if he has reached tamyiz. But what we are seeing, like what I personally I'm seeing in our society, is that these things are not really emphasized. And you find for example, a boy which is 8 years old, 9 years old, what you call it, shaking hands or being with women who are non-mahram. So all these things are very, very important for us to understand that it cannot happen as such an extent, because these are the things the factors that can contribute to the LGBT tendencies. So this is basically prevention is better than cure. But when it comes to children, for example, if they grow up and they have this tendency of LGBT and so on, it is important for them to inform the parents at an early stage. And if they feel that they have this tendency and so on, it is important for them to speak up, so that they can find the solution, so that the parents can help them in solving the problems that they are facing. So this tendency of LGBT, it is a kind of spiritual sickness, just like how in Islam we speak about don't be arrogant, the dangers of having arrogance, the dangers of having ostentation. And Islam provides the answer and the remedy for all diseases that are spiritual. We have diseases that are physical, we have diseases that are spiritual. And Islam is the religion that gives the antidote and the solution to all these problems. So as parents, we must be aware what are the antidotes and what are the solutions to the problems if we find our children have these tendencies towards this LGBT. So it is important again, we speak about the importance of communication, that the children must inform the parents. So if the parents know that the child has such a tendency, then it is easy for the parents to at least advise. Because now, if you know the problem of what your child is experiencing, then you know how to give advice. But if you do not know what is the problem that your child is experiencing, then it's very difficult to give the exact advice. And the problem is that children do not want to open up. Children does not want to open up about the problems that they are facing, out of the fear that, as what you mentioned, the parents freak out, for example. That the child has this kind of tendency. So it is important for us parents today. We have to be open in a sense that we have to understand that the society that we're living today is different than the society back then. That these ideologies are present. We have to acknowledge these ideologies are present and they are influencing many youths today. They are influencing societies, and organizations are fighting for these rights and so on and so forth. So we have to read up about these issues. We have to be aware about things that are happening in our communities, so that we are able to give the right advice rather than freaking out. We are able to give the right advice to our children if we find that they have that kind of tendencies. So as for the youth, it is important. If we find ourselves having these tendencies, we must acknowledge that this is not permissible. Number one, it is against the Islamic teaching. The Quran speaks about LGBT. The story of Nabi Lut alayhi salam, for example, with his people. So the youth and you have to understand that this is something and that is against the aqidah. It is against any basically our belief, against any our Islamic any practices. And all this goes back into the nurturing and that the parents and give any during childhood, that the child at least and he has this mentality about the seriousness and about any these issues. Point number 2, as what our guest Mr. Fandi just mentioned about peer pressure, right? You mentioned about peer pressure. Sometimes some any of these youths, any for example, they have any these tendencies, and the problem is they mix any with that kind of people. So they have any that tendencies. They know they are having any this crisis in themselves when they grow up. They know they're having any this problem, but at the same time also they are with those people any who are in this community. So as what any the saying, the prophetic saying any earlier, we spoke any about al-mar'u ala dini khalilihi, that the religion of a person and it depends any on the society, on the friends any that he is with. So how is this youth any able to go out any of this community or go out any of this peer pressure? This is a challenge any for the youth. So as parents any we need to help our children, not any just to what you call it to in a sense to condemn him, for example, to condemn him in a such that he got no trust any with the parents at all. He said, the moment I seek help any for my parents any wants to throw me out of the house, or my parents any freak out or say that I'm there is curse any upon me and so on. Better any I ask any the views any of my friends any who are within any that community. We are making a situation going worse in reality. Rather than any we save him, we are just any let him in drown any basically like let him in drown in the sea. We are seeing any a person for example seeking help in the ocean. We should throw this what they call it
life boy,
life boy, right? So rather than we give any help, then we are just telling him that since you are condemned and you don't listen to me, you are this, he will just any be drowned. So this also any requires any a lot any of wisdom. So we need any to listen any to our children, especially any if they open up any that they have certain tendencies, meaning they are serious, meaning they are telling us that they are facing any problems and they do not know how to solve any problems. This is any the instance which is very any important any for us to help them by giving advice and to encourage them to move themselves away from that peer pressure, because this is the thing that a lot any of youths they cannot stand is the peer pressure, because any the peer pressure will what you call it make them away any from their family, away any from their parents, and so on and so forth. So this is any the thing that we have to always look at who are the friends any of our children, what kind of friends any that our children is missing with. Sometimes any children, youth, and they do not want to open up, but parents need to be tactful also and to look at this tendency any at an early stage. Meaning look at the kind of friends any that they're mixing and detect any the problem at early stage, and then what you call it, then necessary any advice and giving any support any to the children any can come in. Allahu alam.
Shukran Ustaz. Ustaz, would you like to add on?
May I add?
Sure, please, Ustaz.
So Alhamdulillah, Ustaz Anwar has already mentioned all those things, but I think maybe I want to add on with regards to help. Like how do we help these kind of people? For example, like sometimes parents they acknowledge the changes in their children, for example, and it is not normal. How do you seek help is like how do we have specialists like doctors, heart surgeons, eye doctors, orthopedic and all. When we have heart problem, we don't go to the dentist, you see, and claim that you are a doctor as well. No, but we have to really go to a proper channel and go for professional help. That is all I want to add on. Go to a professional help. If we can help ourselves, then we try to channel them to a proper line. So inshallah that will be much more efficient in a sense.
Shukran Ustaz. I think what Ustaz shared is, both our speakers have shared very important here. It comes down to both sides needing to give way. One person, the children must be brave to voice it out, and the parents must be accepting to listen and to provide remedy rather than to sweep it under the carpet or to just scold them without fully addressing the matter at hand. And I think as well, Ustaz Khairi mentioned, if let's say the parents realize that they cannot address the issue, it's not limited to this particular issue. It can be it's all related to other parts of parenting. If let's say the parents realize that the children are out of hand, then they have to seek help from the proper channels. I think that's very important. So as a closing to this forum, I would like to ask if any of our speakers would like to have anything to add on with regards to our topic today. Do I have to repeat myself? Any of our speakers have anything to add on? Ilhan, anything for yourself? Ustaz?
No.
Ustaz Khairi? Alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khair for the great questions that have been raised, as well as the answers that were even better. I hope that the answers have been sufficient for all of those who have been facing these issues, and we hope that it addresses the issues that are pertinent to our society, inshallah. And we do apologize. We understand that there are some questions that have been asked that we didn't get to answer. We do apologize for that because of time constraint, because now we already have overrun slightly. We apologize for that. So with that, we have come near to the end of this evening's forum with our esteemed speakers, Ustaz Khairi, Ustaz Anwar, Fandi Ahmad and his son Ilhan Fandi. I represent the planning committee and everyone in the mosque to thank each and every one of our viewers online for attending this evening's forum that we have organized. We hope that it has been beneficial for everyone, and at the same time, we would like to apologize for any of our shortcomings during this journey. We ask that you make dua for us, that Allah accepts what little we have done so far and forgives us too for whatever that for all our shortcomings, inshallah. If you have any feedback for this forum, the committee invites you to write freely to us, and we would like to know how we can better serve the community for our future initiatives and events, inshallah. Once again, we would like to call upon our viewers to please donate generously to our beloved mosque, Masjid Ali Abdul Razak. May Allah bless you all for your kind contributions. In fact, if just to add on, for our big diehard fans of Fandi, our respected guest here has so kindly offered to sign on 2 football balls. One of them you can see between them there, as well as 1 national team jersey. And when he signed it, after that it will be auctioned off, where the full proceeds of the sales will go to the mosque to fund our ongoing renovation and repair works for our toilets and roofs. So please stay tuned to the auction that will begin tomorrow, and the details will be provided tomorrow. So please stay tuned. It will be on Masjid Ali Abdul Razak's Facebook page, inshallah. So we appreciate your kind and generous support to share our initiative, our auction initiative, to whoever you know are big Fandi fans, and if possible to support them yourselves, inshallah. So let us all end this session with tasbih kafarah and surah al-asr to seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for any wrongdoings that we may have done during this session, and to remind us of the importance of time for us all. Subhanakallah bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal 'asri innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus salihati wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr. Aqulu qawli hadha wa astaghfirullahal 'azim li wa lakum. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.